everything depends on how you start out, I think, in some ways. And I think what Atul's book is saying is that economics and the various fields of human behavior under that heading have kind of started out on the wrong foot. So, to give you an example of a wrong start, when social media were overtaken by Musk and Zuckerberg and so on, the central concept, central algorithm was maximize engagement. It wasn't maximize happiness or maximize knowledge or maximize educational value. It was maximize engagement. So the social media developed quite naturally as an attention-grabbing and attention-holding system. So what we created was a kind of an addiction, a series of addictions. And these work in predictable ways. They increase clicks, so people like Zuckerberg get richer. And for Zuckerberg, I'm sure that's considered as a fine outcome. That's what he wanted. It isn't an outcome that is very useful to the rest of us, because the way you increase addiction is by increasing hostility, animosity, and division, because those are the things that people really get addicted to. That's the kind of news that really sells. So if you start in the wrong place, you're going to end up in a really bad place, the place that social media and the result of politics are in at the moment. What happens in accountancy, I think, in particular, as personified in the big companies like Ernst & Young and KPMG and so on, is also based on a bad initial target. And that target is make or guard or protect as much money as we can for our clients. And this becomes particularly toxic when those clients also become your colleagues. The problem with the big firms is that they actually are working for the same ends of the firms that they are supposed to be auditing, so that there isn't any longer a relationship of accountability. It's a conspiracy kind of relationship. They want to make a lot of money. We're in with them, so we want them to make a lot of money as well. And if that is the algorithm, then we can expect any moral considerations or environmental or educational, whatever considerations, to be in second place to that. So when Mr. Spicer said in his list of things that we should be considering when we redesign finance, the last one he said was, and the spirit. Actually, that should be the first one. That should be the guiding principle from which other things ensue. I mean, we've seen the complete collapse in economic theory. 2008 should have actually ended up with nearly every economist in the world being fired, because it was such a complete disaster. You know, a week before Lehman Brothers collapsed, KPMG were auditing them and saying that they were a fine company and everything was perfect. And in fact, every company that KPMG audited in the year before this collapsed was reassured that they were doing fine and their business was stable and the future looked bright. Can you imagine any other profession will still be in existence after making such a total blunder as that? It's a fake profession, I'm afraid to say. And it's fake because it's conflicted about what it's trying to achieve. If the well-being of the human race is part of your consideration, then most of the things you're helping those companies do are not in the human race's interests. You know, APNG would never insert a moral clause into any judgment they made, just saying, well, you're making a lot of money, but I think you should stop supporting companies that chop down forests, for example. That is not the job of accountants. So if the purview is so narrow, is so narrowly committed to just one metric, which is the bottom line, you're in for a disaster. Now, I know a lot of you are probably economists, and
hope you'll find something useful to do with your life one day. So I speak to you with the arrogance of an artist who doesn't have to deal with such real things. But
I would like to tell you something about artists, which is that when we can, we navigate by our sense of what is beautiful and what is meaningful. And funnily enough, artists, with some exceptions, aren't that interested in the bottom line. The bottom line for them is, how does this make me feel? What does this make me feel good about? That's a different bottom line than what's in my bank account. The first conversation I ever had with my accountant, who's been my accountant now for 45 years, I think, I said to him, I want you to always pay all my taxes. And he said,
nobody's ever asked me that before.
I think that is actually quite astonishing. The thing that people mostly go to accountants for is to be told how to avoid paying taxes. I happen to believe that that's part of being a human in a society. Taxes support most of the things I want society to be able to do, except on Iran, for example. I think we are now in a position where we have to start saying the pursuit of wealth is killing us. We have to say that there must be wealth caps. You know, capitalism is a very powerful machine without brains.